Hi, I'm Madison Brown, and my sophomore year, I was a part of the Virginia Space Coast Scholars Program. So I'll just be telling everyone more so about it, what I did, my experience with it, and yeah. So next slide, please. So about me, as I said, my name is Madison or Maddie. I live in Virginia. I'm 17, so I'm a rising senior. I go to the Roanoke Valley Governor School in Southern Virginia, and my interests include environmental science, earth science, and especially astronomy. What kind of got me interested in astronomy especially was the fact that when I was younger, I grew up in a very rural area, and I was able to see the stars and just without any light pollution and whatnot. So that ability to be able to see them and just kind of led to me to a bigger sense of curiosity. And I also would ask my parents a plethora of different questions, like why are we here? What are those things in the sky? All this stuff. And one year, my parents got me a book called The Big Book of Questions and Answers for Christmas. And there were a few sections about astronomy in it. And that kind of really jump-started my overall interest and passion in kind of learning more so about our origins and whatnot. As I got older, I would kind of try to research more so. I remember when I was in middle school, I would check out a few books by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Although I didn't really understand exactly what the books were saying, it still really allowed me to think, hey, this is really kind of what I want to do as a career. So due to this, later in high school, I kind of looked for programs and opportunities and whatnot to kind of allow me to manifest my interest in astronomy. Next slide, please. So Virginia Space Grant Consortium has several programs for high schoolers that varies across astronomy and earth science and engineering. I did the first three listed on the slide. I did BLAST, Virginia Space Coast Scholars, and VESS. BLAST is a residential program for 8th to 9th graders, and it doesn't really have more so the aspect of like mission design and whatnot, but it does give a really nice overall view of STEM and the opportunities and careers within that. So I did that my freshman year, and then after that, I did the Virginia Space Coast Scholars my sophomore year. That more so, it was still general compared to the latter two programs, but it still gave a really, really nice overview of mission design, how NASA exactly outlines their mission and whatnot. And so after my sophomore year doing Virginia Space Coast Scholars, I did the Virginia Earth System Science Scholars a few weeks ago, actually. And that is more so environmental or earth science based. It has to do with analyzing the spheres and designing a mission based on the spheres of the earth. And then there's Virginia Aerospace Science and Technology Scholars, or VAST. I have not done that one yet, but I do plan to do that my upcoming senior year. That one is more so engineering based, and during that academy, you kind of design a mission to Mars with other scholars. So what I will be focusing more so is on the Virginia Space Coast Scholars program that I did my sophomore year in this presentation. So next slide, please. So each of the programs, with the exception of the BLAST program, requires students to partake in an online class. It varies, well, the material varies depending on which class it was. For the Virginia Space Coast Scholars program, there was a variety of different topics. It wasn't really more so niche compared to the upper class, or the program is meant for like juniors and high school students, seniors and juniors, sorry. But the Virginia Space Coast Scholars kind of touched on previous NASA missions and basically the history of NASA and different missions, and how that kind of led to exploring new missions, and basically what kind of we know about space already and how NASA decided what to study. And then also touched briefly on the earth science aspects, earth systems, and then it also touched briefly on engineering things you probably would explore in VAST. And depending on your school, students can request for this class to be a credit in their high school transcript. Unfortunately, this class doesn't have dual credit for college, but if you were to apply to VAST or VEST, those do dual enrollment credits. This could be definitely a nice gateway opportunity to take those classes later on. Next slide, please. So during the academy, we had to design a NASA mission, essentially. We weren't really given any type of boundaries or kind of any restrictions. It could be really anything that interests us. So my team and I, we decided to analyze or explore upon intergalactic collision. Our acronym for our mission was the Milky Way Intergalactic Collision Exploration, or MICE for short. And the goal was to identify gravitational wave discrepancies from collisions with other galaxies. And the instruments that we used for this mission related to various different spectrometers. And we also used the Black Bryant to launch our equipment and whatnot. Actually, I'll touch on it next slide. Next slide, please. Sorry. So I wasn't really well versed in the instrumentation side of this project, more so that wasn't really my position. There were several different positions as listed in the slide. The project manager more so was the oversight person who kind of oversaw everything, made sure the timeline was accurate, kind of contributed to everything. The science office kind of more so touched on selling the idea of the mission to convince the public to support our mission. Additionally, the research scientists kind of did more the technical side of like what are we measuring, sometimes instrumentation and whatnot. The Office of Communication, somewhat similar to the applied scientists, it had to do with PR, kind of just getting the project out there and selling it. They were more so responsible for graphics and whatnot. The engineering office was more so instrumentation, so they kind of more understood like the spectrometers and the Black Bryant and aspects of that. And then lastly, the environmental office, or the environmental scientist, is what I did more so, just because I really do have big interest in environmental science. So I thought it was really unique to kind of correlate environmental science with astronomy. So yeah, so I kind of dived deep into exactly the environmental impacts of the mission. I was responsible for the platform launch, the orbit, the altitude, also deorbit and understanding the impacts that the payloads would have after deorbit and whatnot. So with that, by analyzing the impacts, I had to develop mitigation techniques for the mission. And with that, I also had to develop an environmental recovery plan to mitigate any sort of environmental interference with the native species in the area, or any type of like on-ground validation or calibration, any type of possibility of damaging the environment or the species that live in that environment as a result of this mission. I also was responsible for the mission timeline and operation, as mentioned, more so deorbit, and just analyzing the impacts and taking that into account when doing the timeline to make sure that it will abide by environmental policies. So yeah, next slide, please. So I kind of touched on this, but this is more so specific to our mission within my team. So I, oh, sorry, I thought I was on the right side. That's my bad. No, but more so of an overview of the mission is, again, we wanted to provide evidence for intergalactic collisions and whatnot. With that being said, we had various amounts of instrumentation, equipment, and whatnot that could pose a threat to the environmental conditions of the area. And we were launching from the White Sands Missile Range, and that area is very prone to endangered or threatened species. So we wanted to ensure that these species are not tampered with. And we used the outline of the National Environmental Policy Act. It's a policy where the public has the opportunity or responsibility to have a say in different type of scientific research if they have any concerns about the environmental policies or environmental impacts. So with that being said, we had to, well, we didn't actually do this, but it was more so a hypothetical. We were to develop a programmatic environmental impact statement draft, basically saying this is the possibility of what could happen to the environment, and here are the steps that we are taking to mitigate that. So we really didn't dive deep into actually developing one, but given that this entire mission is more so hypothetical, if it were to be in place, we would definitely develop some sort of draft like that. And we also expected the payloads to land in private, federal, or state property. We wanted to ensure that these payloads are not going to damage any sort of habitat near any endangered species, or even land in an area that could cause water contamination and whatnot. So yeah, next slide, please. I think that might be all. Yeah.
Awesome. So like I said before, if anybody has questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. I'll just start off asking you a few questions to kill some time. But how long is the program itself?
The program itself is about a week long. I did the program virtually, but usually students would go to Wallops Island at the Langley, I believe, NASA Center and stay there for a week. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. But it was still a really fun experience just doing it online.
That's awesome. So what is the application process like? Is it an interview or just like a standard form?
The application process is very similar for all the programs. It's simply an online form that you fill. You have basically your transcript, your extracurriculars, the classes you're taking, and then you have a few essay questions depending on which program you're applying for.
All right. It does not look like we have any other questions, so I'm going to end the recording. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course, thank you for having me.